Okay, so this is a fairly new film in the 2020s. It's called Bitch Ass. Was Tony Todd in it?
It does sound like a movie that would want the skills of Tony Todd in it. I'm gonna say, if I had to guess, I was gonna say he is in it, but that is just a guess.
So I'm going to say yes too. I'm gonna go with my partner in this one.
Okay.
Tony Todd and Bitch Ass. I would pay money to see that movie.
I am, because he is absolutely in
Yes.
Bitch Ass.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Horror Heads podcast. I am Rich Mallory here with my co-host Jerry Lorenko.
What the fuck's going on, Rich?
Dude, it's a Monday night and I'm about to get right. You could follow us on Instagram at Horrorheads Podcast. Email us to horrorheadspodcast@gmail.com. This is available wherever podcasts are available. You could also watch the video on YouTube, which we highly encourage you to do that so you can see all of the mayhem that we get up to over here. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, so you can be the very first to know everything that we're doing, and you could tell all your friends and be really cool that like you discovered something that they don't know. And we release episodes every Tuesday, so be on the lookout for that. If you are watching this on YouTube, you will see we do have a very special guest here tonight. Director Jeremiah Kipp is here to talk about their most recent film, The Mortuary Assistant, which is crushing it on Shudder. So we're going to talk to Jeremiah in a minute, learn more about him, his career, and The Mortuary Assistant. And we also are going to talk about the 1992 slasher classic Candyman. I just talked for a lot. I'm out of breath. Jeremiah, how's it going?
It's great. It's great to be on your show. I'm really looking forward to talking about all things horror, but also Candyman, which is a movie that I really love. It's very close to my heart.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that. And Jeremiah told us before we got on the air that he did watch one of our previous episodes, so he knows what we're all about. And what we're all about here is not just horror. We're about to do some drinking. So, Jeremiah, I know you got like a nice bottle of Chianti there.
Yes, in the spirit of 1990s horror, this is a bottle of Chianti. The great Hannibal Lecter. I don't have any fava beans, but I got a bottle of nice Chianti.
All right, well that's good enough, and I'm assuming you don't have a liver there either to feast on. So Jeremiah's already sipping. I want to be in the sipping club, so I'm gonna pour. I'm pouring something out the decanter.
Was that Blanton's?
No, yeah, right. I would never put Blanton's in the decanter. It is Makers that I'm just trying to get through because Bevmo had the buy one get one for a nickel sale, so I'm going to be drinking Makers for a very long time. Jerry, what do you have over there? I saw something that looks a little fancy.
I love that hero pour, so I'm going to back it up with my hero pour right here.
Ooh.
Yeah, buddy.
Bang. Check out this bottle right here. This is so sick. So this is Bootlegger. This is Bootlegger Bourbon, and it's from New York. So in the spirit of having another East Coast New Yorker on the show for a change, I'm usually by myself here. Everyone's usually from LA with Rich.
Or Canada.
Or Canada. And he gets to make like all the cool friends. And I basically sit here by myself. So in spirit of that, I found this awesome bourbon when I walked into the liquor store, and there was some nice woman there, and she's like, would you like to drink some bourbon? And I almost fell over because I was like, this is what I've dreamt of. So I definitely drank that bourbon. I liked it, and I was excited it was from New York. So here we go.
New York.
All right, let's cheers to that. Everybody put your glasses up in the sky. Let's all take a nice sip together.
Cheers. Ooh.
Yeah,
burns.
feels good to be drinking again. I took yesterday off, so it feels good to be back on the horn. I did drink heavily Friday and Saturday, and now I took yesterday off, and I'm ready to rock and roll. Jerry, how's that bootlegger? Tell us about it.
Wow, this bootlegger, it burns, man. This is 92 proof.
Oof.
It has a long burn. It's actually made its way from the back of my throat. Now it's starting to burn my stomach, and it's kind of making its way down. Really nice taste, though, honestly. Like, I like the burn. So it has a nice kind of. Let me take another sip. Hold on a second.
And you said 92 proof because you've been drinking high proof stuff a lot lately.
Yeah. Yeah, this has a nice kind of like syrupy taste to it. I'm really enjoying this. It has that nice caramel syrupy taste, but it does have a burn. And you're right, I have been drinking like 115, 120 proof bourbons, but they all burn differently. Usually those more expensive ones, they kind of just go down smooth. This one wasn't that expensive. I think it was about 50 or $60, I think. I don't know if I got a deal on it because I bought it right from the woman, but you know what? I'm loving it. So
All right. Well, this was a nickel, so a little cheaper than what you're drinking. Jeremiah, really quick. So I don't really know. I'm sure I have in my life, but I don't really know if I've drank Chianti before. How would you compare that to like other red wines?
Yeah, Chianti it has a fruity, velvety taste.
mm,
It goes smooth. Like it goes good with meals. Like if you're cooking a nice steak, it's one of those that pairs really well with a lot of different kinds of foods, which is why Hannibal Lecter brought it up in Silence of the Lambs. But I think it also goes really well with social gatherings such as what we're doing right now. It just runs smooth, and I feel like the company here is good, and we're gonna have a smooth ride tonight.
We
At
we
least I
are
hope
gonna have a
so.
smooth ride.
Like
Yeah. No.
we'll see how it all rolls because tomorrow I'm supposed to have a lunch with Brian Clark, who's the game creator of Mortuary Assistant.
mm.
We're supposed to when we have lunch, I mean, we hang out for several hours and we get some drinking done in
Mm.
that time. So we'll see what kind of haggard shape I'm in, if I'm fresh or destroyed as a result of this conversation.
Yeah, you might want to move that lunch to 2 or 3 p.m. I'm just saying that right now. No, so I'm glad you mentioned that. So the Mortuary Assistant, like I said, it's on Shutter now. It's still like in one of their top, I believe in the top 10 still, which it's been
Hell yeah.
for a while. We both watched it. We want to talk about it. I actually had no idea it was a video game adaptation until I just did some research on the film. I just watched it. And it's funny because when Jerry and I were talking, I was watching it live and it feels like a video game and I'm like that's interesting. I didn't realize it actually was based on a video game. So
Yeah,
for those of our fans out there that are not familiar with your film and what it is, can you kind of describe it for everybody? Tell us what it's all about.
sure. Mortuary Assistant, based on the game of the same name. It takes place at the night shift at Riverfield's Mortuary, and Rebecca Owens, played by Willa Holland. It's her first night there. She's passed her interview, and she gets her first experience among the dead at Riverfields. She's more comfortable among the dead than she is with the living because human beings are complicated and dangerous animals. But she soon finds that there's supernatural forces at work at this location that are dredging up the demons of her past and using them to attack her and kill her in her mind and kill her in her heart. And anybody who's played the game knows that survival is not a foregone conclusion in the world of the mortuary assistant. The dead will rise.
Very cool. Yeah, the movie definitely like sets a mood. Like it's a almost like a dark and stormy night. Like it
Hell
definitely
yeah.
it's a vibe, and it's definitely a movie
The
that I would
vibe.
recommend watching lights off late at night. Check it out. So I want to ask you because we've had a lot of filmmakers on, but I don't think we've had a filmmaker on who's adapted a video game before. So a couple of things I would like to know kind of what like got you interested in this project. Were you familiar with the game? Did you have to do research like after being brought on? Like what's your story with this one?
Well, I came on board because I'd made a previous film called Slapface, which is about a monster and a little boy and their dangerous friendship. And the sales agent for that film was Epic Pictures Group, uh, and they sold the film to Shudder. So Shudder and Epic were both involved in my previous work, and were wonderful. The way that they rolled the film out into the world was remarkable. So the two of them, those two companies got together and decided they wanted to adapt a video game. And they interviewed a bunch of directors who they thought might be a good fit for the job. When they initially approached me, they didn't say, "Would you like to adapt the Mortuary Assistant?" They said, "Would you like to adapt a video game?" And immediately the things that ran through my head were like things like Super Mario Bros.
Yeah,
Movies.
I'll get that huge check to do Super Mario
Hell
Brothers.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Doom,
mean, Super Mario Bros. Existed in a
Mortal
time where
Kombat.
it was the Wild West of video game adaptation. So they didn't really know. They were like, all right, why don't we just make it like Blade Runner? And consequently it didn't please people who really loved the game. And that's true for film adaptations like Doom, which is a remarkable first-person shooter, but doesn't translate easily into being a narrative story. So I initially was like, why the hell would I want to adapt a video game into a movie? But then they showed me the Mortuary Assistant and I played it. And I immediately saw the cinematic possibilities of that particular game. I was like, oh, this game has really wonderful characters, has a vibe, as you say. I loved the monsters in the game. I loved the entire space, and I've always been a huge fan of Don Coscarelli's Phantasm, which, evokes a feeling of being among the dead. But then, like, once you get past the weirdness of the mortuary setting, then it gets into the supernatural elements at play. I loved how Don Coscarelli handled the weirdness of that material. And I loved the game, and I loved the characters. And projects like The Last of Us have shown us how you can take a narrative-driven game with characters and character arcs and transpose that into narrative storytelling. Last of Us, the game, translated really smoothly to the Last of Us series, at least in season one. And with Mortuary Assistant, I immediately saw that it could be a movie. But more than that, I just loved the characters. I loved Rebecca Owens. I loved the demons that are attacking her speak in the language of suicidal ideation and depression and addiction. So there were strong themes running through the work. Uh, and I met, and that was my pitch. I was like, I'm going to pin the whole movie on Rebecca Owens as a character. And I'm going to take inspiration from movies like Phantasm, but also the spirit of the 90s is a lot. I mean, the game is set in the 1990s, and I immediately thought of Silence of the Lambs. During the final sequence of that movie, there's a remarkable sequence where you're watching Clarice moving through the hallways down in Buffalo Bill's basement, and then it will cut to her POV moving around corridors. And I was like, oh, that's a way that you can translate the POV of a game into a cinematic language, because we empathize with Clarice Starling. And the more I thought about it, I was like, horror games translated into movies kind of affect me the same way that John Carpenter's Halloween does. You pin all of your empathy on Laurie Strode, in the weird situation that she's in. And I was like, okay, that's how I'm gonna go into this video game adaptation and just treat it as if it's a horror movie with an interesting character and interesting location, and just dive deep into that. And the game creator, Brian Clark, who was on the interview, liked my take on it. He said he's the guy for the job. And that started a 2-year development process before
Wow.
we shot the film. The script was written by Tracy Beebe, and then Brian came on like the cavalry at the end and kind of brought the script back into the language of his game. And I felt strongly about having Brian there because, a lot of the video game adaptations, they don't have the game creator standing right next to you. I made sure that Brian was there because I cast him as a dead body. I was like, Brian, how do you feel? Or actually, it was his idea. He was like, what if I play one of the
Which,
dead people?
which one was he?
He's the second dead body that you see. So
Oh,
his
yeah.
eyeball moves a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
That's Brian. And I said, Brian, it's not that easy playing a dead body. I mean, I did it once before for friends of mine. They were like, can you play dead for us? I was like, how hard can it be? You lie down, you're dead. And when I fucking played a dead body, they put me in a weird position. I got to keep my eyes open. And then they don't treat you like a human being when you're a dead body. They're like, and we're rolling and hold your breath, Jeremiah, don't move. And hey, what if we do this with the camera? And
Yeah,
I'm
20
lying there.
minutes later.
And I'm like,
Breathe.
eventually I stop and I'm breathing. And they're like, Jeremiah, we said don't breathe. I'm like, I'll hold my breath once you guys are ready. And I was like, man, they don't regard you as a human being anymore. You're just a prop to them once you're dead. And I was like, I swear to God, I'm going to treat all these dead bodies like superstars. And Brian was our first, one of the first dead bodies that we filmed. And he had a great time, but he was supposed to be there for 5 days, 2 days of shooting and then 3 days of hanging out. But he loved the process so much that he called his family and was like, I want to be there the whole time, which suited me just fine because I could have the game creator standing by my side. And when we had his monsters in there, I could say something to him like, Brian, can you just act out how the monster moves if they're like coming down the hallway, and like Brian would just do it and the actor would imitate him. He knows the game and the characters better than anyone. So that was, I thought, a thing that would be helpful, was having Brian there with me, because a lot of these game adaptations kind of move afield from what the original intention was of the game. And we wanted to translate it into a cinematic form, but still be true to Brian's world. And, in the process of doing it, Brian and I just became really good friends, and I kept him involved all through post-production. I showed him every edit of the film. I made sure he was on the interviews with the sound designers so that, because sound is so important to the world of his game, I wanted him to be a part of the process. Also, I did deploy Brian like a howitzer. It's like whenever I got any pushback from an executive, I would be like, "Well, Brian, who created this game, says this," and he was perfectly happy to like go to bat for me whenever I needed. So in that sense, it was a beautiful process of going from game to film, because he liked it and I liked it, and we were both very proud of it. And I said, at the end of the day, no matter what else happens, that's enough for me. Like if you made an adaptation of Frankenstein and got Mary Shelley to stand next to you while you were doing it, and she was like, "Oh, I'm very happy with what you've done," you would feel like $1 million.
That's
And
awesome.
that's how we got to feel with a living game creator. But he got the film bug. I mean, he started directing films with his kids, kind of like the Addams
What?
Family. And he's been writing screenplays, and he's caught the bug. So he wants to get back on set as soon as possible.
So you got him hooked. I think the tricky thing to
And
like to
so,
find the balance, especially with like a video game adaptation,
yeah,
is you take a video game that people are playing for weeks and months, and you're trying to make that into like a 90-minute thing. If you make it like too true to the video game, the critics are going to hate it because it's not exactly going to feel like a mainstream feature. But if you stray too far from the video game, now the fans of the video game are going to hate it. So it's like you have to balance like who you
Tough.
actually want to make happy, and the fact that you had the creator on there, at least that kind of solves the problem of like fans being like, "Oh, this is nothing like the video game," because like no, literally the guy who made the game is here and said this is how it's done. So that's
that was
really
my
really cool that
insurance
you had that.
policy.
The
But
other thing I
but I
want to
still wound up feeling like Ryan Johnson doing Star Wars, because everybody who plays the game has their idea of what Rebecca Owens is and what what Raymond Delver is and what the monsters are and all that. So, we took our hits from the super fans, and I was like, "Oh, that's what it feels like." But at the end of the day, I was like, "Well, Brian and I both feel great about it." And like whenever we shot a scene that wasn't in the game, we did make sure that it was true to the world that Brian had created, but also we wanted to add stuff that like the game couldn't show. Like in a sense, we added more cutscenes that move the plot forward, you know. But we did it in such a way that it honors the spirit of the game. But you can't make everybody happy. And indeed, there were audiences that like were frustrated by our iteration of the movie. But then, there were also people who loved it, and like, it was not for nothing that it was one of the top five most viewed films of all of Shudder's
Hell yeah.
library in its premiere, and then it's been, like one of the top 10 most viewed films on Shudder of all time. And that makes me really proud and really happy. And of course, Shudder and AMC are really happy about that too. They felt like they bet on the right horse. And I do think they're immediately, I mean, nobody's greenlit anything, but they have already started, some whisperings about Mortuary Assistant Part 2. So we'll see how
Oh,
that all
you heard
unfolds.
it here first, people. That's it. Breaking information right
Very
there.
cool. I want to talk about so the character of Rebecca, who basically drives the majority
Yes.
of the movie, is a very complex character. Again, she's dealing with like addiction, she's dealing with traumatic stuff from her past, with family issues and things like that. And I felt Willa Holland did a really great job. So we kind of like to know again about like is a similar character in the video game, or did you kind of
Very
like
much.
expand upon it? Okay. And then how did you like I want to like know about the casting process because I feel like
Sure.
she's really good in this role. So how did you kind of like align on casting her?
Yeah, Willa Holland was great, and she did an amazing job in the film. I knew she was a wonderful actor because I'd seen her in a film called The Dirty South, which was a crime movie produced by Mike Manning, who produced my previous Shudder movie, Slapface. And I called up Mike and I said, "Well, what's Will like to work with?" And he described it, and he said, "You guys will bring out the best in each other." But I hadn't thought of Willa initially. The casting director, Alison Estrin, gave us her name among, many others. But I remembered, her film with Mike, and I said, oh, she, like there's something about Willa, there's a real edge to her, and there's something in Willa's manner that is not waiting to greet you and hug you. And, something about that, I was like, well, some of my best friends are like that, that they're hard to initially get to know or are very shy. A lot of the morticians that I interviewed when I was just doing research were very shy, but then very forthcoming about their work. And I was like, oh, Rebecca lives in her work as a mortician and it takes great pride in it and is like totally not living in her life. She's like pushing all of her trauma and her shit to the side and not directly looking at it. And what the movie's really about are the supernatural forces forcing her to directly look at her stuff and trying to wrench her sanity by doing so. Now, Willa read the script, and then we had a couple of interviews, or it was a couple of Zooms before she said yes. And what I learned real quick was that the way that she identified with the role was that through show business, her entire childhood was denied to her. Like she was like 5 years old, and her stepdad was Brian De Palma, and her next door
Oh,
neighbor was Spielberg.
oh, wow.
What?
And Spielberg was like, "Kid, you could be a star." And she's like, "Really?" And then before you know it, she's doing commercials and she's acting in television and she's spending more time with 300 dudes wearing baseball caps pointing lenses and lights at her than she is in school. So she's not hanging out with other kids. She's hanging out in this magical dream world that we call movies. And she did that for most of her life. She was on, like she went from project to project. She did the OC, she did Arrow for many years. And, Willow was just telling me she felt like she was denied her childhood and she was denied her teenagerhood. And in a way, she felt like she didn't even really know how to connect with other human beings. She felt way more comfortable at work doing her acting in front of the camera and felt more alive in front of the camera than she felt outside of work. And I was like, yeah, that's my interpretation of Rebecca Owens as well. And so we were on the same page with what we wanted to do with the role. And we had a really wonderful breakthrough in, I think it was the end of the first week of principal photography. I mean, she was doing wonderful stuff, but we both knew that there was a scene where Rebecca is at Narcotics Anonymous and she's giving a speech. And, Willa knows a lot of people from the program, and she really wanted to honor them in her performance. So she was, in her trailer, like really preparing and working herself up to this scene all afternoon while we're lighting. And then she comes to the set and she's shaking and she's very nervous and she's like, Jeremiah, I just don't know if I can do this. I was like, well, that's exactly what Rebecca Owens would say, don't you think? And
That's a
she's like,
clever way to get her. Yeah.
and she was like, you're right. And of course, she took that with her into the performance. And it's one of my favorite, sequences with her, just because I know how devoted she was to the presentation of that scene, and it was like the one day that Brian Clark wasn't able to make it, he saw the dailies and he was very moved and he was able to walk up to Willa and hug her the next day and say like beautiful work. So working with Willa was very much like that. She doesn't like to speak in actors' language, but she does like to speak in a filmmaking language. She likes to know what the shot is. She likes to know what the blocking is. And then she said, like, let me know all the technical elements and I will fill it up with meaning. I don't like to talk about acting. And, so I said, all right, you're going to be like my filmmaking partner, and I'm going to include you in the process. I'd never met an actor who wanted to see the shot list, who wanted to see the style guide, who wanted to know what lens we were on and where the camera was going to go. Because she interpreted every shot as like telling that little piece of the story. I thought it was remarkable, and I really enjoyed my time with Willa. And the only time I saw her nervous after the Narcotics Anonymous scene was when Paul Sparks was going to show up as Raymond Delver. And she was intimidated because she thought Paul was such a remarkable actor from House of Cards and Boardwalk Empire. And she was a little afraid of him. Now, Paul is a really lovely guy, and he's very gentle and sincere and kind, but when he turns it on, he can be very eccentric and weird and off-putting, and in performance, not when we call cut, he's as fun as they come, but she felt like she was being put on the back foot by Paul. And I think that's a little bit of actors just taking the feelings that they have and incorporating that into the character and into the scenes. Uh, Paul Sparks had seen Slapface and liked it. And he was one of those guys that, like, when he was considering playing the role, he played the game. He discovered all the different endings. He got on the Reddit threads and was doing a
That's
deep
so
dive
cool.
into the research of the lore. So by the time Paul came on, like, he was sending me emails that were like cathedrals or pieces of architecture that were all of the building blocks of his character. So unlike Willa, he loved talking about acting. And he loved talking about all the different iterations of how we could play Raymond Delver. And he was a lot of fun. And as it turned out, we realized that we both went to New York University at the same time, me in the film program and him in the acting program.
Oh,
We
wow.
lived in the same dorm. He lived 2 floors above me, and we did not know this until we were just chatting one day because he's one of those guys that shows up early on set. Like he shows up half an hour early, and I show up half an hour early. So Paul and I are both there before everybody else, and we're just chatting away, and we realized that we were both the same alumni, same building, same dorm. And I was like, I think I know who you were. I think when we were riding the elevator down together, that was you, Paul Sparks. And he said it was kismet. We were destined to meet. We've become since very good friends, and I hang out with Paul quite a bit. But he loves acting, and he loved playing Raymond. And he and Will ultimately had a lot of fun together and a lot of laughs, which is great.
So you mentioned like Frankenstein and Mary Shelley early on.
Yeah.
What do you think's more difficult, adapting a video game or adapting a book? I would
Well, I think it
think,
depends on the video game and it depends on the book. Because
yeah,
I think that not all video games should be made into movies. Some of them, like Doom, is a really good
right.
case in point. It's like there are no characters in Doom, there are
Well,
events.
there's no like real plot.
Yeah.
It's basically, I
No
mean, there is,
plot.
but it's very loose.
Yeah.
So it's like they kind of just said like, okay, let's just
Let's
create something
invent a
out of
plot.
nothing
Let's invent a
versus
role for The Rock to play. You
right, which
know,
never really works. Yeah.
which never works and it
Yeah.
makes no sense. But like they were able to take a game like Exit 8 and like transpose that into like an interesting narrative, like in a cool
What
liminal
one
space.
of Jerry and my favorite movies from last year was Until Dawn,
Oh
and
yeah.
neither of
Yeah,
us had
yeah.
played the video game, but we both loved that movie. I
Love the
know a lot of
film.
people hated that movie, but we loved it, and we just thought
Great
it was
director.
fun. We thought it was fun. It was
Probably
gory
the
and
gamers.
bloody and just cool. Yeah, I mean, so we really liked the game. So I guess getting onto like adaptations, like if you could adapt any book, what would it be?
Oh, I know. I mean, I've been asked this a lot because of the game
Yeah.
adaptations. And it would be Stephen King's Revival, which is a remarkable book with a really disturbing, dark, and scary ending that bothers me still. And I think that's the reason the movie hasn't gotten made yet, is the ending of that book is so profoundly dark. It's like Pet Cemetery dark, only on a kind of cosmic scale. And that's not really a spoiler because you don't, it kind of lets you in on how mean it's going to be. Like you when you read Pet Cemetery, you don't think it's all going to go well, from the beginning. And Revival is very similar, where you're like, oh, how dark is it going to get? It's always darkest before it's pitch black. Um, so I love the book, and I would have to just check in with. I don't know Mike Flanagan personally, but I know that he wanted to do Revival for a long time, and even he couldn't get it made. So if the possibility existed to make that movie, I would check in with Flanagan first and say, like, hey, can I have your blessing? Because I would love to make this book into a movie. But it's one of those books though that like you can't re it's hard to imagine executives lining up saying like, yeah, let's go into this strange, arcane, disturbing land. We'll see though. But Revival by Stephen King, one of his best book of the past 20 years, I think.
Cool. And then yeah, before we kind of get into Candyman and stuff like that. So I mean,
Mm,
we've had a lot of people on and horror's definitely having like a really good period right now. There's lots of
sure.
really new fresh IP. There's lots of like actually really solid sequels. Like I just saw Evil Dead Burn the other night. I thought it was awesome. What's like some like what are some recent horror films that you've like really been like impressed by?
Oh, well, I was so happy when Obsession and Backrooms like blew up the box office because Obsession just has a really smart script from a really talented writer and filmmaker. And I'm sorry, Backrooms, the YouTube stuff that Kane Pixels or Kane Parsons is as he's known in the real world, like his YouTube stuff was always so enchanting. and to see the movie like really understand like what worked about liminal terror, was effective. I could have done without all the backstory stuff in back rooms, but I don't think it hurt the movie. I thought the movie was spectacular, and the vibe of it was even more up my alley than Obsession, which is like just a wonderful story. And then before that, like all the stuff that paved the road for those movies is stuff like, The Witch and Babadook and Hereditary, all those things. Talk to Me, I think is profoundly great, but all those things led up to Obsession and Backrooms. But then on a smaller, more indie scale, I think the Addams Family are always doing incredible things, like Mother of Flies on
Oh
Shudder.
yeah.
It's such
I
a
haven't seen
deep,
that yet.
thoughtful,
Yeah, they make
beautiful,
crazy
character-driven
films.
movie.
Yeah, it's
Insane and
unbelievable.
intense.
It's always beautifully shot and just
Yeah. And then on
dark.
Shudder, like Night Patrol and Body Cam, filmmakers who have been on your show, but
Yeah,
Friends of
but
ours,
also
yeah.
hell
films that are
yes.
wonderful. Like Night Patrol, I thought was great. And seeing Obsession and Backrooms in a packed house was very inspiring to me because like some of my formative movie-going experiences were in packed houses. Like Friday the 13th Part 4, I saw that and it was like watching the Super Bowl with a crowd that was
Oh,
rowdy
you
and
saw it in the theater? Oh, that's wild. That's
it
awesome.
was
That's
one of the
that's our favorite Friday the 13th is part
yeah, it's
four.
great.
Hell
And it was
yes.
great audience experience because they were cheering and shouting, saying all the
Love that.
"Don't go in there, you idiot," But when I saw Night Patrol, I was the only person in the theater, and it was very disheartening. Like Late Night with the Devil was me and a couple other people,
Mm,
and I was like, maybe the theater going experience is dead, But then seeing this year Evil Dead Burn, and then Obsession and Backrooms, like really packed houses, like really like a fan base that was showing up and cared about it. It was exciting, and I was like, all right, yeah, it's not dead. The theater going experience is not dead. They just wanted something that would get them to go to the movie theaters. And I was very pleased by that. But I was also, when they told me that Mortuary Assistant was going to have a theatrical run, I was still smarting from Late Night with the Devil and Night
mm.
Patrol doing, like, I mean, they just didn't come out for those movies. And I was like, why? Why do you want to put this movie in a theater? Nobody's going to come. It's going to be so depressing. But, around America, I was just hearing friends of mine in different states saying, like, nah, man, theater's three-quarters full. People are
Awesome.
gasping, people are reacting to it. And when I saw it in New York, it was like, oh, three-quarters full. It's great.
You know what it
Text.
is like about theaters? Like it's
Yeah,
not dead, but it used to be there was more variety of movies out.
that's
So
right.
like I remember like I would just show up at the theater and find something to watch. Like I'm
Yeah,
just
me
gonna go.
too.
I want it's Friday night. Let's go to the movies. We'll figure it out. Like there's
That's right.
always something to watch. But now it's like you have the big Marvel or the big Disney movie. You
Yeah.
got one big kids movie, and then maybe you have like another like smaller kind of movie. So people just aren't just going to the movies just to go to the movies anymore.
Sure.
And if there's not a lot of awareness created or a buzz, then it's just people just aren't going to show up. So you take a film
Right.
like Night Patrol, which shout out to Ryan, like great
Got it.
movie, but like if no one's heard of it, if they don't have a huge marketing budget, it's tough to get people in the seats because they're just not gonna go. But like
Yeah.
Obsession, like everybody was talking about it, right? So like you
Yeah.
had to go see it in the theater. I actually saw it Backrooms. I went to a matinee, so when I saw it, it was empty. It was empty
Oh,
theater,
wow.
but it was
Okay.
like 2 in the afternoon, so it was like not expected to be people. But I enjoyed the movie just as much as if it
Mm.
wasn't a packed house because I could get into the vibe of it.
Oh,
So
for
I
sure.
think that's really what it is. It's just the way like kind of the distribution is for films. It's just people just don't go to the movies like that anymore, and you don't
Yeah,
need
but
to
but
because
to
you
see
know
back,
it's going to be on home video, like on streaming in like 3 weeks.
sure. But to see back rooms in a movie theater alone, like when you leave the movie theater, you got to walk through the theater itself,
It
and like
was a
it's got
good
that
movie to
red
watch alone.
Kind of
Absolutely.
looking around.
Because yeah,
Yeah.
and where I saw it was like in this kind of like not really a mall, but like
Mm.
it was like it was like kind of like a mall that didn't really exist much anymore. Like
Oh,
there
right,
weren't a
of
lot of
course.
stores,
Was
so
it
you had to like
yellow?
no, it's not yellow, but it felt
That's
very
okay.
it felt very empty like walking out of the theater. So it definitely was pretty cool.
You had the
Okay, so
total experience.
yeah, no, it was the right way to watch that movie. So we're gonna talk to Jeremiah a little bit more, get to know a little bit more about him and Mortuary Assistant. I do want to get to the movie we're gonna talk about tonight, and that is Candyman from
Mm.
1992. One more question. I did ask you about the book adaptation. Candyman, as many of you know, was remade maybe like 5 years ago, or it was during COVID. So if you could remake any horror film, what would you remake?
I would also remake a Clive Barker film. I would remake Rawhead Rex,
I've never seen
which
that
was a
one.
monster movie. Oh yeah, it was a monster movie that they made in the 80s. And they made it before Hellraiser and before Candyman. And Clive Barker didn't direct it. So he was on set, I think, and saw how it turned out, and he was so upset because that story is really gnarly. It's like you take the plot of Alien, but you relocate it to the countryside of rural England, and then it rampages across the countryside, and it's deeply disturbing and a really perverse, fucked up story.
As
Very
most of his stuff is.
like most of his stuff is. I mean, he's got a lot of stories that would make for good films. Um, and that one, the feature that they made, the special effects weren't there, and just the understanding of Clive Barker's world wasn't there. So of course, Clive Barker ultimately directed Hellraiser himself, and it's a wonderful film. And then Bernard Rose, who he knew, directed Candyman, and that movie is a spectacular interpretation of the short story. But yeah, I would stick with Clive Barker and do Rawhead Rex. Good
Well, if you
story,
if you do it,
bad
please
movie.
use practical effects and don't make it
Practical
CGI.
effects all the way.
Because that
Practical
it's funny,
effects all
like
the way.
whenever like, and we're not anti-remake here. There's some remakes that we love, but there's so many that we don't like, and a lot of it is because they rely too much on the technology now versus
Yeah,
doing it practical, and it just doesn't look right.
that's
They
right.
look like we just had someone on and we were talking about Poltergeist,
Oh,
and the
sure.
the remake is just it just doesn't hit because it's all like CGI and it's just weird. But then the ones that kind of really embrace, practical gore, practical
Yeah.
effects as much as you can, right, are the ones that really kind of deliver.
Well, I mean,
Like the
Candyman
Evil
is,
Dead remake, for example, is like
yeah,
one where and it's funny. So I've seen the Candyman remake. I saw it in the theater when it came out. I have not seen it since, so I don't remember it too well. I remember walking out of the theater liking it, but
yeah, I like it too.
I also don't I didn't rewatch it, so I'm wondering why I didn't rewatch it. Like I
Yeah,
don't
I
know if I
didn't
just
rewatch it for this conversation, but I saw it in the theaters and I liked it. I didn't think it was a perfect movie, but I thought it was the best Candyman sequel, requel, that has come so far. I liked it. I thought it was beautifully directed by Nia DaCosta. The cast was great. It captured
yeah.
the feeling that it felt like it was made by people who loved 1992 Candyman and
Yeah,
wanted to extend it into remake, requel, sequel, whatever.
I liked it.
But the I liked it too,
Yeah.
but the practical effects, like the practical bees in the 1992 Candyman, like you're not, how are you going to direct these bees? These bees are going
Yeah.
to do what they're going to do. Technology is not dictating the form that these insects are going to take. And so consequently, when you're watching Tony Todd with a mouthful of bees leaning over and kissing his co-star, and the bees start climbing around all over Virginia Madsen. You're like, those are fucking real bees,
Yeah, no.
and it
Yeah.
has impact and a
I'm gonna
power. I
let
mean,
him
not
off the
always, but a
hook for
power.
safety, though. I don't think anyone should use bees in
No,
a 2026 film just for the
no, I
dangers
know.
of
Well,
it.
I wouldn't allow it myself, but you couldn't
so
deny the power of the event. Yeah,
yeah, so Tony Todd had allegedly had something in his contract where he got a grand every time he got stung by a bee, and apparently he got stung 26 times, so he got
Made
26.
bank.
Yeah, exactly. And I was reading how they kind of did that scene. They had like a insert in his mouth that was
that's right.
supposed to kind of
Mouth guard.
protect
Yeah,
him, and they used like pheromones from the queen. Like they had I think I read that they had like a trailer just for the bees and for the beekeeper, and
yeah,
like they use pheromones from the queen to kind of get them to do a bunch of shit, or like there's a scene where they're coming out of the toilet where they use that kind of stuff. So very interesting, and it must have took so long to kind of set that stuff up. And
oh sure.
as an actor, like having to sit there while they're putting bees into your
Jeez,
mouth,
no,
I give
forget
Tony
that.
Todd all the credit in the world for this
Oh,
movie
indeed,
because
he was
You know
brave.
what, guys? I'm
yeah.
sorry I hate to interject right here. I love that we're talking about Tony Todd at this exact moment because I have a
Crazy.
fantastic idea.
Okay, I'm
He's a
listening.
legend. Rest in peace, Tony Todd. I love him. He's an iconic guy. He's been in hundreds A film. So, Jeremiah, what I'm thinking right now is let's play a drinking game based on Tony Todd.
I'm here for it.
And it's a super simple game, and it's going to be a little difficult because Tony Todd is pretty iconic. And all this game is, Jeremiah, is was he in it?
Okay,
so
let's give it a
I'm
shot.
gonna
Oh,
name.
this is
I'm
gonna be
It's
gonna
not
name
going to be
some
easy. It's
films.
not going to be easy. He's not going to say
And,
like
yeah.
Candyman too.
Yeah, no, yeah. So I'm gonna name some films, and you just have to tell me if Tony Todd was in that film.
I'm gonna do my
And
best.
if you get it right, I'm gonna take a drink. But if you get it wrong, you take a drink. And I'm really gonna hook you up tonight. So I'm gonna give you Rich as your partner, and you guys could discuss it, but don't take too long. I don't want anyone looking on IMDb. Don't take too long. And this is how we're gonna figure out how many sips we're gonna take. So it's gonna be progressive. So question number 1 is just 1 sip, but then we're gonna add that to question 2. So question 2 is 3 sips. Question 3 is 6 sips. So we're going to build it up real quick, ultimately ending on 10 sips. So are you down to play this game, Jeremiah?
I'm down to play this game, and every sip will be in honor of the late, great Tony Todd.
100%. Yeah, man. I love him, man. And rewatching this film really kind of like reminded me of how much I liked him. Yeah, seeing him so young, and he was a handsome motherfucker. Let me tell you.
And he was 6'5". I did not know that.
Well, all right. I'll tell a really quick funny story here. Just I was at a horror convention in the very early 2000s, and I was with my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and we had stepped into the elevator, and we didn't realize, but there was only one other person in that elevator, and it happened to be Tony Todd, and he was pouring on the Candyman a little bit, just like fucking with us. So my wife is like 5 foot tall, and you just said he's how tall?
6'5".
So imagine what that looked like, and she's like, I can see her, she's shaking a little bit because she's getting nervous. I'm like, he's an actor, relax. And it was just so funny, but he kind of like did the voice a little bit while talking to it, and it just like it instantly like chills. I mean, he was amazing. So that's just my quick Tony Todd story. So
Brilliant.
we'll get a drink to him real quick, and here we go. So for the first film, was Tony Todd in it? This is a really new film, and I really like it, and it's called Stream from 2024.
Yes, Tony Todd is in Stream.
I might get fucked here.
Wow.
Jeremiah didn't even think about that.
No, I've been on set with the Fuzz on the Lens guys and Michael Levy, who directed that film. I've been on set with him before, so I know I've seen the movie, and I know with 100% certainty that Tony Todd.
All right, this is gonna be easy. This is nothing. All right,
you're 100% right. All right, question 2. This is going to be now for 3 sips.
It's going to go downhill from here.
A little.
Hey, we got one right. That's all that matters. We can quit right now.
A little older film here, from 1997, Wishmaster.
Tony Todd is in Wishmaster.
Is he really?
He gets decimated by the Wishmaster.
Oh,
I did not know you were a Tony Todd expert. I could have went in so many
You just happened to be picking the ones that I know.
Out of all the games in the world you could have put on us tonight, Jerry, you put the wrong one. I thought you were going to do like a video game adaptation game, but you picked Tony Todd. All right.
I went with Tony Todd, man. I just wanted to talk about Tony Todd. Next question, guys. This film is from the 90s, The Addiction.
Tony Todd is not in The Addiction. Christopher Walken is in The Addiction.
Yes.
It was directed by the great Abel Ferrara, who I had the great experience of drinking Colt 45s with at the Chelsea Hotel.
You're drinking 40s?
Yeah, I mean, that was a time. He now lives in Rome and is making movies with Willem Dafoe.
Wow.
But I don't think Tony Todd appears in any of Abel's films, which is a loss for cinema, I think.
So since we're talking about drinking, I had a friend who I think they were PA or like AD on like a Tony Todd movie, I think in the 90s, and their job after they wrapped was to drive Tony Todd to and from the strip club. where he would go and have a few, and then she would take him back to the hotel, which I always thought was a funny
Oh,
story.
nice. I mean, that guy knew how to live.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, you're Candyman. He must have cleaned up at the strip club, man. Can you imagine
I'm
Tony
sure.
Todd comes in
I
like,
wish
my
I wish I
God.
went with him.
right?
That's
Right. He's a
man.
hero.
Speaking of cleaning up here, I am getting my ass kicked in this game, and in post pro, the drink counts is gonna look really, really bad. I need some redeeming value here, so
So
I
before we
may
get to
have
that
to
question,
even do a
right
bonus.
now it is 10 zip. We are up. If we get this, we have a decisive victory. If we don't get this, we will be actually
Wow.
tied, which is crazy since we've gotten 3 right in a row. But let's see what
See,
happens.
the tides can change real fast.
Okay, so this is a fairly new film in the 2020s. It's called Bitch Ass. Was Tony Todd in it?
All right, I'm gonna have to confer with my colleague.
You're
Rich, have you
you're
seen
conferring
Bitch
with the wrong person. I have not seen Bitch Ass. It does sound like a movie that would want the skills of Tony Todd in it. I'm gonna say, if I had to guess, I was gonna say he is in it, but that is just a guess.
Yeah, this could go 50-50. This is like a coin flip.
It
But you say
is.
yes, right? So I'm gonna say yes too. I'm gonna go with my
right.
partner on this one.
Okay.
Tony Todd and bitch ass. I would pay money
I,
to see that movie.
I am fucked because he is absolutely in
Yes!
Bitch Ass.
Decisive
Oh
victory.
my
Oh yeah,
God.
pa, 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 pa.
Hell yeah! Wow. All right, I haven't seen this. What is that film? Tell me. Wait, what's
Hold
the?
on, Jerry's gonna finish his 10 sips first, which could take all night, and then he will tell us about
That was
bitch ass.
I don't know too much about it. I just know it's from 2022. That's all I knew. I read the blurb, but I don't remember
if-
it.
I wonder if
I did
Tony
it. I
Todd
did it
is,
this
like,
morning, so I
ass
don't quite
whipping in that movie.
remember.
He's probably beating the shit out of people in that.
Guys,
I would
I
hope
just
so.
took like 20 sips. I'm not happy with that. Let's do a bonus question.
Bonus question.
Before sips. Last
We already
question.
won, but we'll do this.
You guys won. If you guys want to go one more round, because I
Sure.
can't.
I
I mean,
it's your.
I could only
It's
lose
your
more.
liver, yeah.
I can only lose more. I mean,
Yeah,
mean,
in the spirit of celebrating Tony Todd, and you've been celebrating him a lot with your.
I've
with
been
your-
celebrating. Fuck waking up 6:30 tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. All right, the last question, the last and final question, and this is only for a simple 4 sips, but still could go downhill. I have like 3 choices here. I gotta get this right. All right, was Tony Todd in it? I'm gonna go back a little bit. 1997 to a film called Night Watch.
Night Watch. All right, I'm going to confer with Rich. Uh, I don't think that Tony Todd was in Night Watch. If I'm thinking of the right movie, I think it was like
They're all horror films. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
all like kind of yeah.
I think
The
it
only-
was
The only
Ewan
Night Watch I
McGregor.
know is like a vampire movie, but
Oh, it was that Russian thing, right? Wasn't
yeah,
it
but you're right. There was a Ewan McGregor movie called Night Watch. It
Yeah.
was like a psychological thriller-ish. I don't know the answer. I don't know because I've seen
don't
that
think
movie,
he was-
but very long time ago.
Yeah, I mean,
will-
I haven't seen any of the Night Watch movies, but I don't think he was in them. So
all right, we'll go no.
that's what I'm going to go with. See.
Clean sweep, man. Is the Ewan McGregor film? He definitely was not in that. So
Yeah. He could have been, though.
That's funny. All right, so while Jerry finishes his
at the refill, God damn.
24th sip. He's going to repour. I'm going to tell you the plot of Candyman from 1992 really quick. So, the Candyman, played by Tony Todd, a murderous soul with a hook for a hand, is accidentally summoned to reality by a skeptic grad student researching the monster's myth. And really what this movie is about, it's an urban legend based on the life of a person living in, I guess, slave era America in the Chicago area who is an artist, and he paints the daughter of a plantation owner, I believe. They fall in love. The slave owner is very pissed about this, and they brutally murder Tony Todd's character, cutting off his hand and putting a hook there and then making bees devour him. And basically what happens is if you say Candyman in the mirror 5 times, he appears and kills a bunch of people. And that's really the plot of the movie. So This movie, it's weird. This is one that like never ended up in my rotation. It's one I've seen a
Mm,
bunch of times, but for whatever reason, I never remember really liking it. So I was really happy you chose it because I wanted to give it a rewatch now with
yeah.
fresh eyes. And I'll be honest, I still am not a fan of this movie. And my first reaction was Tony Todd, Candyman is awesome, but he's
Yeah.
barely in the movie. And then I kind of like did some research and like I think he's in it under 10 minutes of screen time, which doesn't sound like a lot, but then I was just Googling what are some other slashers. And in the original Halloween, Michael Myers only has like 9 minutes of screen time. So it's not that, but I think the fact that he comes into the movie very late, like you don't see him until 44 minutes into the movie. And like again, he's for me, he's the movie, right? And it's very similar to how a lot of people feel about Hellraiser, and that I love Hellraiser, huge fan of
Yeah.
Hellraiser. But the one thing it suffers from is like Pinhead, who's like the main selling point, doesn't come into the movie until like the hour mark, and he's barely in it too. So I guess Jeremiah, I know you picked this for us to talk about, and again, a lot of people love this movie. They made multiple sequels. It's a classic. I would love to know kind of what are things that you really enjoy about it that I might be missing as just like someone coming into the movie.
Sure. Well, I don't know if you're missing anything because I fundamentally believe that, you know, audiences, the movie belongs to audiences, any movie, whether it's Mortuary Assistant or Candyman or whatever. I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think it's that, whatever you feel about a movie is the right answer because a movie meets you halfway, and you complete the movie as the audience member. So for me, when I watched Candyman in the 90s, it just really blew my mind. I felt like it was about I grew up in a very rural environment. I grew up in Rhode Island, like in the middle of the woods. And the kids were always fucking around with Ouija boards and like telling weird stories and inventing lore around stuff that was happening in the woods or abandoned houses, and you'd constantly be sneaking into abandoned houses and making up stories about what was inside there. And when I saw Candyman, I thought that it took the bones of the slasher movie because he kills, a bunch of people in the film, in really wonderful, vivid, gory ways. But I didn't. I thought the movie was more about how people tell stories and how stories keep people alive in a way. It's like there's a saying that's not in Candyman, but it's like if you remember someone's name, you give them eternal life. And when I saw Candyman, it's like he wants people to say Candyman in the mirror 5 times. He wants people to remember his name. He wants people to say his name. He wants to retain a place in the conversation as a spirit, as a ghost. Uh, and then I loved how romantic the killer was. Like every time he's with Helen, it's a seductive scene, where he's like luring her into him,
Yeah,
when
she
he's
goes
speaking
into a
to her.
trance, literally,
Yeah,
like goes into a
literally,
trance.
Bernard Rose
Sexy as fuck,
hypnotized
though.
Virginia Madsen.
And the actress did was hypnotized for those scenes
Oh
apparently,
yeah,
so it came off
and
as
she's very
realistic.
compelling in the scenes with
She's
Campbell.
great. Yeah, Virginia
Yeah,
Madsen is great in this movie. And again, this movie is really well made.
very
The
well.
acting is really good. It's like it looks very high end and high budget. The
Sure.
score is done by Philip Glass, who's like an
Pretty
Oscar
Philip Glass.
nominated composer. So it's based on a Clyde Barker short story. So there's like a lot here. And it's very different than a typical slasher. It's not like Halloween. It's not like Friday the 13th. And like you said, the movie does kind of really it's got like socioeconomic kind of like
Right, class issues,
symbol
race
yeah,
issues.
class issues about like the projects and everything like that. So there is a lot going on. For whatever reason, I don't find it as entertaining, and I think I get a little confused by the plot. And like what you said, they mentioned in the movie how like Candyman wants his name to be remembered. He wants it, but like the big plot point is Helen, who's played by Virginia Madison, calls Candyman because she's researching him for this grad school paper. And then what Candyman does is he kind of like frames her for a bunch of murders, which to me doesn't make sense because why wouldn't he want the credit for those murders? Or am I just missing like a plot area? Because that's what I was confused about. I was like, why is he doing this? Why is he setting her up for all of this. Like she's gonna,
Feel like he
ultimately she.
wants her to join him though. I
Yeah, I
think
think it's a
that's
love
like
story.
yeah, he's like looking for a mate, and I think he's just trying to get her down to like zero, essentially.
Okay,
He's trying to
I'll buy
ruin
it.
her life, so she just kind of like accepts like her fate. And to me, like I thought that was one of the most interesting parts of the film, is kind of like toying with that reality. It was like, is Candyman doing this? Is it her? Is she just going crazy? It's like we know as like viewers, but like in the film, it's like it's kind of like an unknown of who's committing these murders. And I thought that was like a really interesting part of the film. And I've been watching this film for a long time, since the 90s, and I gotta be honest, just the way Tony Todd plays that character, it's terrifying. The echo, effects in his voice, it's kind of scary. It gives me chills. Jeremiah mentioned like the kills, they're so like graphic and vicious, and a lot of them happen like during daylight, which makes it
Right.
like kind of even scarier. And there's just so many elements of this film that I actually like. And I always wonder why people don't like this film, because you're not alone, Rich. Like it's I don't know if it's a part of like that canon of like the slashers and stuff like that. I think it just walks that line too much of trying to tell like a big story but also kind of be a slasher. Because if you go and watch like some of the other ones, like I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I accidentally watched Candyman 3 the other night with Donna D'Errico. And if you just want some like TNA and blood, I mean, I think this is where the Candyman films kind of like fall into like that slasher trope. But I think this first one, man, there's just so much to it, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I do understand why Rich feels the way he does. I mean, I don't
I
feel that
want to
way, but
like it. Trust
but I
me. Like I
understand.
want to like it because I do love the character and I love the idea of the character and I love the idea of the movie. Again, I like urban legends. Like there's just something about it where I can't suspend disbelief enough. And anyway, I sorry if I cut you off, Jeremiah, but
No, if somebody
yeah.
doesn't like it, they could argue that it falls between two stools. It's like, is it a slasher movie? If so, where's the slasher? It's a very slow burn, like 45 minutes to get to
Mm.
Candyman. So there's a lot of building up to the character before you see him. But for me, that was part of the pleasure, was like I felt like the movie, again, I felt like it was a seduction, and like it holds back for as long as possible, and it even holds back on his Candyman reel for like sections of the movie. It's like, is Helen cracking up, or is Candyman, is she doing the murders? And of course the movie does come down on the side of like, no, the supernatural exists in this universe. But I think Clive Barker has his kinks, I don't know him personally, but I think that pleasure and pain and the thing that you're both attracted to and repulsed by is like a big magnet in the Clive Barker universe. In Hellraiser, it's a similar proposition, which is like, experience the most extreme pain, and you'll get a vicarious pleasure out of it. Now, that's not the pleasure that I want to party to myself. But like in Candyman, I found it a little easier. I mean, I love Hellraiser, but Candyman was more my speed because I was like, oh, it's like he wants to bring her into that Clive Barker attraction repulsion thing, and that's why he's doing all these murders and pinning her name on it, is so that she can become a legend with him, and they can both be legends together and be consumed in this bonfire at the end. It seems like that's his whole agenda, is to build up Helen to be his essentially bride of Candyman. And I found that really sexy, and I found it disturbing too. I was like, this is so fucked up, but I feel so drawn in by Tony Todd. I totally understood why Helen, almost feels faint whenever he's around, more than even afraid of him. She's like just kind of drifting away. Like, wonderful set piece is like her friend shows up and she's trying to say, run, go away, leave. But she's so drained of energy by Candyman that she can't do anything when her friend comes in and gets murdered. And I was like, wow, that's kind of like bad dreams you have where you're moving in slow motion. You can't do anything. The horror is just unfolding in front of you. So I think Candyman has a lot of ideas on the go. And for me, they blend together like a beautiful cocktail that I like to drink every couple of years. But I can totally understand why it doesn't, because it's not exactly an A24 movie, which is an intellectual exercise, and it's not a slasher movie, which is delivering the Super Bowl every 10 minutes. So Candyman like is kind of doing a different thing. Is it an art film? Is it a slasher film? And I'm like, well, I love that it's both of those things. Why can't we choose both? And Candyman is so alluring to me in that way.
Yeah, and you know what? I was just going to say that. Yeah, it falls between those two stools, like you said. Is it a slasher film? Is it an art film?
Mhm.
And I think every time I go to watch it, because I forget it, because I just
Yeah,
don't remember like why I didn't like it. I'm like, oh, I should like it. It's like a classic horror movie. And then I put it on, and I think I'm expecting a slasher.
sure,
And I think the next time I watch it, I'm going to go in expecting an art film and see,
sure.
or like, a real high-end indie kind of, psychological movie. And maybe then I'll have a different perspective if I just go in thinking that versus kind of my preconceived notion of, oh yeah, this is going to be Candyman slicing up a bunch of people, which this movie is not.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's just my perspective on how I approach it based on just, you see the poster, you like it's Candyman, like, I think
Right.
As
that's
a
kind of
hook. Yeah.
is a hook, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
No,
I think
exactly.
I mean, that's brutal.
and we mentioned the remake, and I think the remake is very art film. I would
Very
say,
art film. Yeah.
and I kind of knew that going in, and that's maybe why I like that movie more because I was
Mm.
expecting something more high end, more like, not just like someone cutting up a bunch of people. So
Yeah.
maybe that's kind of I come in with like a prejudice towards the movie.
Yeah, I do agree that the reboot from a couple of years ago like leans hard into like art tropes, in ways that I embraced, in ways that I really dug. I was like, all right, yeah, there's no trace or whiff of B movie around the reboot. And the 92 version definitely lives in art film and kind of almost trashy B movie,
Mm.
in ways that don't necessarily, that coexist in a way that delights me. But I can also understand why, people might not be satisfied because it doesn't quite give them either one. From my
And
opinion, it gives you both,
Yeah, and what I was reading too is I think the ambition was to make the original more of an art film because I did read that Philip Glass was expecting the movie to be more like high-end polished, more art film, and then he felt that it was too B movie and wanted to like disassociate himself with
At first
working
he
on
did
it.
until the residual checks came
Right,
in.
oh yeah, yeah. Money
Then he
changes
called Bernard
everything.
Rose and was like, when can we collaborate again? They've done like 4 movies together, which is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, so like, I think maybe this the intent on paper, just like again, like because you have to make fans happy too. You have to like make
That's
it
right.
interesting. So you have to like lean more into kind of some of the horror movie tropes if you want it to kind of work. So
Sure.
yeah, so
I mean, for me, it's like there's so many things I get into this film, which is weird because, I'm going to be honest with you, Jeremiah. I do not get into Hellraiser at all, and this is
Mhm.
like a point of contention with me and Rich that
yeah.
like he's a fan, I'm not. So I'm almost surprised because this does feel like a similar film, and I'm surprised he doesn't like it, and I'm surprised I do like it. So there's a few things here, but I'm gonna tell you what I do like about it. I mean, I definitely like that gritty kind of Chicago setting.
Yeah.
I like the investigation aspects of it. I feel like they're really kind of taking like this like investigative like in journalism approach to like horror, and like they're basically talking about horror, but they're talking about the movie, but they're talking about this character, and it's all like related, and I like how they put that together in this film. And I mean, for me, Virginia Manson is awesome in this
Incredible.
film.
I
I
agree.
love
Yeah.
her.
Incredible.
I find her like extremely sexy.
Yeah.
So I think Trevor, her husband, is a bitch. He's a hopeless guy. I don't know what the fuck this guy was thinking because I mean, I wouldn't be dicking around on Helen at all because like I'm like,
What are you
God
thinking,
damn.
Trevor?
Yeah, man. Like, that student, I mean, she's all right, but I mean, she's not Virginia Manson. So, I mean, but I mean, just kind of getting into it though, you mentioned it when her friend Bernadette is killed. I mean, that is such a brutal scene, and they kind of just show the aftermath, and it's just like gore. And when that baby goes missing,
Oh
that
yeah,
is
it's a great
such
scene.
a crazy moment in the film because you don't know what is happening. So I don't like animal violence, and I'm not gonna like get on my soapbox tonight, Jeremiah. I don't like that the dog got killed. But there is that moment in the film where you don't know if it's like the dog, the kid, if everyone's dead, you don't know what happened with this baby. And to me, that I'm like, ah, this fucking movie went there. I'm like,
Like
It gets
it's
very
like a
dark. Yeah.
bloody crib, and you're
it's like
just
waking
like,
up from a bad dream and being covered.
yeah, you're just like, this is really, really fucked up. And it does go really dark. And again, it's just kind of something unexpected in this film. So
Yeah.
these are the things I like about it. And ultimately, how do I judge a movie? I judge a movie if I could rewatch it again, and I judge a movie if I could feel something. So I've been watching this movie for like 30 years, so I know that works. And honestly, I do feel something. I do get scared, and there's a lot of times where I'm alone at home and I will not fucking say Candyman 5 times in the goddamn mirror.
I never
I
have.
won't do it. I won't. I'm a grown fucking man, Jeremiah. I'm a grown man. I won't do it.
Oh, I
So,
hear you.
so getting back to like the setting and like again, a lot of it takes place in the Chicago area
Mm,
projects, and it feels very authentic. And one of the reasons why is it was authentic, and they did film in a very dangerous part of Chicago. And what I was reading was to get permission to be able to film there without getting killed, they had to offer some gang members like roles in the movie as like extras.
mm.
And apparently on the very last day of shooting there, someone shot at their van of
Oh
like
wow.
the production van. So like they were in a very dangerous, and I believe that the area that the movie was filmed in is they raised it and it is actually like expensive condos now or something like that. But
Like in
at
the
the
sequel, yeah.
but yeah, like exactly. But at the time, that was like a very dangerous area they were filming, and that was legit projects. And it does, it feels very real. Like
Stakes are high,
the
man.
set design is crazy, but no, that is actually like
That
the set is
public
real.
bathroom, oh my God. Like, what the fuck was that thing? Was that real? Like, does anyone use that?
The
Like, I
worst
was
bathroom in Scotland, that
yeah, holy
The
shit.
worst
Like,
bathroom in
that was
Scotland.
like, I can't believe she went in there. And then, of course, something to me that was even almost more horrifying than, the Tony Todd parts because it felt like a little bit more real. It's like, oh, here comes this gang member who's posing as someone, he's calling himself Candyman, and he was walking around with like a meat hook, and they kick her ass essentially.
Yeah.
Like she's just some innocent woman, and they just fucking work her over, man. They don't give a shit. And I'm like,
she's
She's
lucky
going,
that's all they
she's
did
going,
was beat
dangerous.
her up
yeah,
because
she's
I thought that
going
was
where
going to
they
get
she wasn't
darker.
supposed to go.
So, like, a question I have for y'all, and I miss this every time I watch the movie. Why is he called Candyman? Do they ever explain that?
I don't
Other than
think
it sounds
you
cool. Like,
other than I mean, well, I think it's because like the he gets slathered in honey
The honey, yeah.
when he's murdered and the bees all decimate him. So I think it's the sugary nature of the honey that is translated into candy and sweets for the sweet and so on. That's my theory anyway.
I agree with
It
that.
is something that's come up. Like the director has had to answer that question a number of times. But my theory was that it's the sugary nature of the
So
honey.
some marketing and catchy doesn't count. So we'll go with
yeah, it sounds cool.
I
Yeah.
mean,
we'll go
Bernard
with
Rose and
the
Ty
we'll
Barker
go with
very,
the
very well pulled that out of their butts. Like, oh, that's why. You
I
know,
mean that backstory though, again, that lore of Candyman, again, it's just like a 2 minute kind of part of this film where they're kind of telling his backstory, and it's like one of the like most disturbing backstories I've ever
yeah.
heard in
Yeah,
my
it's horrific.
life. He's like an artist and he gets this woman pregnant and they like basically torture this man. They cover him in honey. He's stung by bees, and that's not enough. They cut off his hand and they set him on fire. I mean, like this is like brutal, and it's like, man, no wonder why this guy is like so pissed off. It's like that is such an insane lore that I mean, it's disturbing, and it's like kind of hard to listen to. Like when you hear it like that, like I don't watch this often, so like when they get to that point in the film and they're telling that story, I'm like, man, that is fucked up, and it's
Yeah.
like you feel like almost there could be some, some truth to that, in
I'm
historical,
sure stuff like that
yeah, and
happened. Like
in
he's, yeah,
history, yeah,
yeah.
like it's probably not that far off of something that happened in reality, and it's just like, man, that what a fucked up time, and again, very disturbing, and I think it just adds to this character and the way he holds himself. Really interesting, but I'm always disturbed by that.
Yeah, it makes Candyman a uniquely tragic American
Yeah,
monster,
exactly.
and in the short story it's set in like Liverpool or something, and the reason they relocated it to Chicago was more for pragmatic reasons, like they did Hellraiser and it was set in England. And the distributors were like, redub all the dialogue so that it
Yeah.
sounds vaguely transatlantic. And so Bernard Rose and Clive Barker, who were friends, were like, let's not fuck around with that again. It's like, let's just do it in America. If that's what we're doing, let's just do it in America. And Clive Barker was like, well, where? And Bernard Rose just arbitrarily was like, Chicago. And they went to
Okay.
Chicago to scout and was like, show me the worst place. And they were like, that's very easy. And they took him straight to City Green. Uh, and consequently, from relocating it to the United Kingdom to America, it becomes an American tragedy and it becomes a story about race in America and
Yeah.
class in America, which has a very different vibe than the United Kingdom that Clive initially wrote the story on. Candyman is a white guy or is perceived as a white guy in the short story. And then by relocating it to America and changing the backstory the way that they do, I think it does give the film an epic quality and a tragic quality that wouldn't be there otherwise. Now, I think Hellraiser, I don't know why they did this transatlantic thing because it's such a United Kingdom based story. It is so clearly Europe when you're watching that movie, and yet I understand like why they were like, let's not fuck around with that again. Let's just make it
Yeah.
American.
Yeah, no,
I
and it worked,
like
and
Hellraiser
it
a
makes
lot.
the movie more timely too. Even though this was done in '92, it does, the themes still resonate today. So
For sure.
versus it makes the movie does make it more special than just again another just kind of slasher movie when you add all of these other elements in there that a lot of people can relate to. So look, as much as I wouldn't say I'm a fan of the movie, it is one that I do watch. I do want to watch it again with different eyes. I do appreciate what they did, and I would never say whether I like it or not. It's not a bad movie at all. It's a really well done movie. It's just confusing for me in the way it kind of presents multiple different tones. So anyway, so what we do just to wrap it up, Jeremiah, is we do rate these movies on a scale of 0 to 5. We do a little bit of drinking that's timed to that. So how that's going to work, Jeremiah, is whatever rating you give the movie, Jerry and I are going to take those sips.
Mm.
Then I'm going to give a rating. Jerry's going to take those sips. Jerry's going to give a rating. I'm going to take those sips. You're going to take the average of those sips. And I'll explain it as we go. But we'll start with you. Just what do you give this movie 0 to 5 bloody knives?
Well, because it means so much to me as a movie, like I'm willing to forgive any of the stuff in it that, I mean, any stuff that might be perceived as hokey by today's standards. I just kind of give it a free pass just because I find the film so meaningful. And it's a movie that I revisit every couple of years. So I would rank it as one of my top two favorite
Oh,
horror films in the
wow.
90s, along with Silence of the Lambs. Uh, if we don't count Seven and we say that's a thriller, not a horror movie,
Could go
so
either way. Yeah, could
yeah,
go
I mean
either
for
way.
sure, Seven's a great
Serial killer
movie, but
film.
like
Okay.
I would give Candyman the full five just
All
for
right.
Wow.
resonance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know what? Not surprised. So Jerry, let's take those 5 sips. Jerry's having a rough night tonight.
sorry, Jerry. Sorry.
YOLO.
So, Jerry, you're going to be a little lucky since I am not going to rate this movie that high because, again, it's not one that I ultimately find entertaining. I already listed the reasons why. I don't need to go into it. I do appreciate the movie for what it is. I do appreciate that it gave us Tony Todd, who, again, we're all big fans of. I am going to give the movie. I'm going to give it in the middle for me. It's 2.5 for me.
Okay.
So, Jerry, what do you give it?
Fair enough, man. So I'm gonna say Candyman 3 is your film. So I highly recommend watching that on Pluto TV, where I
I tried
watched it.
watching part two last night and I couldn't get into part two, but I
No, I
also
say
was like on my phone. I wasn't really paying attention.
I say
Part three
watch
is my
part
movie.
three. You don't need to really get into it. You just need to look up occasionally. So I'm
I
gonna
do like
say,
Donna D'Errico.
yeah,
So.
yeah, man. She plays a starring role, and it's absolute
Say
shit. But
less. Say
I
less.
think that is exactly what we're looking for. So anyway, I like this film. I do revisit it probably once a year, once every 2 years. I do like it. I did like the remake a lot. To me, this film, it just feels a little elevated. You kind of nailed it, Jeremiah. It feels like something in between like an A24 kind of slasher adaptation, which to me I find very interesting. It has that 90s grit. I like it. I'm gonna keep watching this film until I get really old. So I'm giving it a 4. I like it.
Okay, so let's see. So I'm gonna drink for 4. Jerry's gonna drink for 2.5. Jeremiah, you're gonna drink for 3. So let's all
Whoa!
do this
Finally,
together.
Jeremiah's getting some sips in.
Let's cheers to that.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And before we kind of wrap up and let Jeremiah go, so you can finish the bottle in peace. What's next for you? Like anything you're working on right now? You could tell us, or anything you're excited about.
After we finished Mortuary Assistant, I went to Cambodia and made a horror movie in the jungle.
Get out of here.
It was intense, and much like Spielberg, who will never go back to the water after doing Jaws, I will never go back to the jungle. I felt immediate sympathy for Francis Ford Coppola and John McTiernan and Oliver Stone and any filmmaker who's made a movie in the jungle. It is hard when monsoons come in and snakes are everywhere, and it's rough. I mean, like you really do feel like you're in the bush when you're making a movie in the jungle. But it's a monster movie in the jungle called Faceless, and it's playing a festival in Cambodia this summer, and then it'll be rolling out internationally like this fall or early next year. And then, as I said, Brian Clark, the game creator of Mortuary Assistant, and I are meeting for lunch tomorrow to talk about a project that we want to do. Nothing's been greenlit, but Brian caught the filmmaking bug, and he said both that he wants to do a Mortuary sequel and that he wants to do original work. So, we may cover a lot of ground. We hang out. I mean, we hang out all the time and have many lunches and many drinks, and have very similar conversations to the ones that we're having tonight.
I like
So,
that.
don't be surprised if there's a Brian Clark, Jeremiah Kipp collaboration in the next year or two.
Awesome. Well, we definitely love to have you back on because I definitely want to talk about the experience of filming in the jungle for another time. How could people find you if they want to just like learn more about what you got going on? If they want to tell you how great you are, like.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and it's very easy to find me because I'm the only Jeremiah Kipp. So if you type in my name, you will find me. But I'm pretty active on social media. I like writing about. I don't write a lot about my personal life. I don't post the food that I'm eating, but I do post pretty frequently about films that I like and actors who I enjoy, and I'm a cinephile, so that's how I use the social media to keep people up to date on my films and other things that I like.
All right, well, everybody, check out the Mortuary Assistant on Shudder. Also, look up Slapface on Shudder. Watch those. You could check out the socials to learn more about Jeremiah Kipp. While you're on socials, you could also follow Horror Heads at Horror Heads Podcast on Instagram. You can email us horrorheadspodcast@gmail.com. Again, this podcast is available anywhere you get your podcasts. You could also watch the video on YouTube. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, doing everything you can to support us because, we need that bourbon money. So we release episodes every Tuesday, and that's it. So thank you, Jeremiah, so much for coming on. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Really great to hear your perspective on things and to learn more about, again, your process. And best of luck, and can't wait to hear more about these upcoming projects. So let's cheers, and let's all have a good night. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Keep on talking.
All right. Good night, everybody.